The road to Emmaus and back again. This journey begins with a road leading out of the city. It's late in the afternoon. The midday sun has passed and the shadows of early evening have begun to appear. The morning had been full of anxiety, excitement, and confusion. The tomb is empty. Cleopas and the other disciple had left the city and were on the road to the village of Emmaus. Jerusalem was a place of danger, an all too close reminder of their grief and sense of failure, and so they were leaving this city and taking the pain of loss with them on the road. Jesus begins to walk with them, inviting them to tell their story without interrupting or correcting their version of events, revealing a great respect for human experience. He validates their moment of hopelessness and pain, but he doesn't leave it there. Jesus begins to tell another story, or rather, he puts the disciples' story in the context of the wider narrative found in the scriptures, beginning with Moses. As Jesus taught from the scriptures, the disciples' hearts burned within them. It was their aha moment of integrating the previous hopes with the reality of their lives now. We come to the table. The road has led the three to this place. The disciples invite the traveller in to eat with them. Jesus makes to go on, but they insisted. It is nearly evening and the day is almost over. They were determined to provide hospitality to this unknown visitor. While they were at the table, the stranger took the bread, blessed it, broke it, and handed it to them. Their eyes were opened and they recognized Jesus as their guest. The connection is made between the words spoken by Jesus along the road and the last meal shared with his disciples and in his presence with them at this table. It was their first resurrection experience. These once deserters and betrayers of Jesus, now in his presence, experience love, forgiveness. Jesus, the crucified Christ, is the presence of forgiveness. What about you? Can you recall a significant table experience? Jesus, who is present at the table in the breaking of the bread, is the crucified Jesus. The table represents both the remembering of the death of Jesus and the celebration of his resurrection. But there's something else. In between that is the wonder, awe, and mystery of God and God's doings in our lives. This God moment, awe, wonder, forgiveness, is the work and presence of the risen Christ with us. But the disciples don't stay in this place of awe and wonder. They leave and go out into the darkness of the night, no longer afraid. The road leads them back into Jerusalem, back into the world. But it's still the same city full of fear and danger, and yet they go now unhesitating to share their experience. They've been transformed and empowered to leave the safety of the presence of the risen Lord and to go back into the thick of the suffering and danger, to share their experience, not only with the other disciples, their friends, but with the world. For the disciples of Jesus then and now, the resurrection aims for the creation of faith. Our faith doesn't remove us from the suffering of the world. For as I said before, it's the crucified Jesus who has been resurrected. In fact, it's in the marks of his death that Jesus becomes recognizable. It is these marks of betrayal, desertion, and abandonment that reveal his presence as one who has forgiven. Jesus is the presence of forgiveness.
Good.
In August 2005, my family and I spent a week living and sharing with the brothers of the Taizé community near Cluny in France. This wonderful place of rest, refreshment, acceptance and worship has been a place of pilgrimage for thousands of mainly young people since the Second World War. During the evening service one night, the founder of the Taizé community, Brother Roger, was brutally stabbed in the neck. This unwarranted attack was frightening and traumatic for all of us there that evening. Brother Roger died an undeserved death, and for those who were part of the community that week, it was the resurrection story that was the only story that seemed to bring any comfort and peace. Many children, including our own, witnessed this horrific event. The following day in the family teaching tent, the children's animators told the disciples' story, the story of the death and resurrection of their friend Jesus. The story, told with simplicity and empathy, brought hope and peace to both children and parents. It was the only sensitive response to a question that had no answer. Why? There's a sense of connectedness and continuity with those first disciples who felt lost and afraid at the hideous death of their leader and their friend. At Taizé, this resurrection hope was also evident throughout the rest of the week. In every service and all our prayers and our thoughts, we were continually directed to God's great love and forgiveness by the remaining brothers of Taizé. These were the same brothers who had lost their dear leader and friend. For those of us there who experienced this phenomenon, it was a privilege and a renewal of our faith in God, unity with one another, and an energizing for ministry in the world. It was an encounter with Jesus, the risen Christ, walking with us and teaching us in the midst of great suffering. The road from the table is a confrontation with a suffering world, which more often than not requires a journey of forgiveness. You might like to reflect on some of these questions. So then, what is the significance for us as individuals and for our community in the journey to Emmaus? What is the significance of table experiences in taking the road back out into the world? Where is the presence of Jesus on your journey? What is your table? Who is welcome at it? Who is the traveller who might need to be welcomed? And where does your road from the table lead? We celebrate today because this journey is the creation of faith. We know that the risen Christ walks with us along the road of suffering and is also present at the table and meets us in our joys and sorrows on the road. Go well on your journey. Christ is with you. Amen.